I'm so happy right now. Oh yeah, it's still alive. We have finally had some really good weather over the last few days, and I've gotten a really good start on the early spring garden cleanup. I got quite a bit done yesterday, not everything. I still have the greenhouse work, which we're going to do in just a moment, but let's go look at the raised beds and I can show you what I was up to yesterday. These beds don't really look like a whole lot now, but they still had some dead stalks, some weeds and things from last year. Raised beds tend to need topping up in the spring, and I actually tend to dump my pots at the end of the season, just the smaller ones, into the beds just to contribute to the soil level. So they also needed leveling out, but these two beds are pretty much finished. I didn't finish this one because I keep forgetting to come out here with my drill and fix this board, but that's going to happen in a couple of days. Then this one will be done. This bed has sunken quite a bit, but that's because it's full of perennial tarragon, and I haven't really wanted to top this up too much. So this one's going to need a little bit of work this year. But after cutting out a lot of the old stalks, you can see there is a lot of new growth. Lots of brand new little early spring tarragon shoots. And this is a 3x5 foot bed, completely full of tarragon. The saffron crocus is evergreen, so this has looked like that all season, although I've never had anything nibbling on this before. I have a few of my tulips that have been nibbled too. I don't know if a deer would eat these, but I'm going to keep my eye on those. We even have garlic starting to show up. This is one of my 2 beds of tulips. It's actually the smallest bed of tulips, and this one has a lot of my doubles in it. You can tell that I dumped out some pots in here last year because all of these roots are sort of getting a bit tangled in the emerging tulip foliage, but that's okay, they'll be fine. It's just going to contribute to the organic matter of the soil, and a couple of heavy rains will knock this down quite a bit. The frost heaves the soil a bit up in the spring, that's normal. There's a few patchy spots over on this side, but I think maybe I planted most of them on this side anyway. I filmed that, I should just look. That's the advantage to gardening with the camera around. I have this black netting here because I do cover this in the evening and overnight, just because deer, I've never had an issue with deer eating my tulips, but there's some munching that's been happening on just a small patch over here. So now last year I covered them too, just in case. I never did have an issue, but when you have 1,500 tulips in one small space and you're relying on selling the majority of those tulips, it's important to protect them. So far though, they are looking gorgeous. Now right behind this tulip bed, see, I have 4 raised beds in a row right there, and then I have a slightly bigger one. This one is going to house my ranunculus, and I built a little hoop over these yesterday. And this is probably the simplest hoop you could build. It's simply a piece of a bamboo cane and some PVC pipe from the hardware store. I think a 100-foot roll of this was maybe $40 some, and I did have to buy a special little tool to cut it. There's 2 random crocus and a tulip coming up in this bed. I don't know, I think maybe the squirrels did some rearranging of my bulbs last year because I've noticed that in a few other spots too. But at least they didn't eat them. And I have a big roll of plastic that I'm going to use to cover these. That's just one of those jobs that I ran out of time for last night. But what we're going to do now is go and have a look inside the greenhouse. So this is a 6x9 foot greenhouse built from recycled windows that came off of my neighbor's house. It was about $500 for all other material, including a little bit of sand and all the wood, gutters, roofing. The roofing was probably the most expensive out of all of the pieces. And it's landscaped with a little bit of spring bulbs and some Mediterranean herbs. So these ones here on the bottom are the different oreganos. We have hot and spicy, golden oregano, and this one is variegated, which is looking pretty rough, but there's some foliage there. There's chives, and then there's thyme that I did not cut back yet, and then there is some sage and a little tiny lavender. You can barely see there. The lavender is not looking the best, but there is a little bit of blue-green growth, so I'm sure it's fine. Oh yeah, it's still alive. Lavender tends to take a while to pop back up in the spring, so if yours is looking sad for a while, that is not a problem. This is zone 6, and we're still a month and a half at least away from our last spring frost. So a lot of these things, this is exactly what they looked like in the depths of winter. The foliage is soft, it's still green, I mean, most of it anyway. If it was dried up and crinkly, then you might have lost your plant. But if it's just soft, sitting here like this, that just means it's waiting for warmer weather. It doesn't want to burst into growth too soon and then risk having a hard freeze kill that new foliage, so it's just going to sit and wait it out. Same with this lavender. There's a winter savory right there behind me, which is fantastic. There is chocolate mint right here, and there are 2 bags of gravel right there in that wheelbarrow. There's 4 more in the greenhouse, and that's what we're going to deal with next. This greenhouse is starting to show its age a little bit. It's just been through its 5th winter, and until fall I had been planting in the ground, but all of that growing space has been ripped up. It is packed to the brim with seedlings, but we're about to change that. Oh, it's 18 degrees in here. I hate to have the door open. It was supposed to be sunny today. So it's only a couple of degrees above freezing outside. 18 degrees Celsius is 65? That's a guess, I'm not sure. Close to room temperature. So I do have some piles of pavers. There's a few, there's a lot more in another part of the yard. But what I decided to do first is just level it out with gravel, let it sit for the season to make sure that it's properly packed down. And then we'll do something pretty with some pavers in the fall. Let's see, why did they close that one with a cable tie? Well, that is useless. Or I could just cut these bags open from the bottom, but then I wouldn't be able to reuse them. I hate wasting stuff. I need another tool. So my official recommendation is to not use your good clippers to open cable ties. So don't do what I do. Oh, that worked so well though. This is not pretty gravel by any means. We just need something to level it out and make a base for the paving that is eventually going to be in here. That is already so much better. And I'm actually going to bring a little shelving unit in at this point so that I can get some of those trays off the ground. Whew. And it's starting to hail. Great. This is a really handy little shelf that I found at IKEA. It's indoor-outdoor, so it is weatherproof and rust-proof as far as I can tell. I've dumped a lot of water on this thing and there's no rust yet. But this cover is really great because I can use this for germination, to keep the humidity in, which is actually what I have been using it for. But in here, I'm going to keep things that are maybe a little bit more cold sensitive so that I can give it another layer of protection at night just by zipping up this cover. And this is like a tarp material, but it's see-through, so it lets some light in too, which is good. I don't really have anything out here that's particularly cold sensitive right now. It's only April after all. So I'm just putting the smaller of the things in here, which is stock, feverfew, and a tiny little bit of Rudbeckia that we potted up together, I think about 2 weeks ago. So there's a lot of shuffling happening right here. Now I'm just going to put some of those trays up onto this shelf so I can finish moving that gravel around. It is so lush and green in here. The hardest thing about working in here is not breaking a window with this handle. All right, so this is definitely not a perfect job, but throughout the season of walking around in here, it's going to pack all this down. I can level it off really well and put another thin layer on top, and then we'll do some nice flooring with some of those patio stones I have. I have some bigger ones, but I also have hundreds of little red bricks that might look really nice. But we also need a good pressure wash in here too. So not sure if that'll happen in the spring or fall. It's really good to do it in the spring, just to make sure you're maximizing all the light that's coming in. But that being said, now that this backspace has been cleared out, I'm going to do something in here that I've been meaning to do for 5 years since I built it. Yes. I'm so happy right now. Now it's perfect. Welcome to my greenhouse. If this wasn't before, it is now definitely my happy place. I am surrounded by plants in April when there is nothing else growing. And look, space for more seedlings. I could put a tray here and here if I wanted to. I have used this for that before. This is outdoor furniture after all. This is exactly what I've been dreaming of doing in this space for the last 5 years, and I can still fit 17 trays of seedlings plus 5 pots of daffodils, and there's still room to walk around. So that is where I'm going to leave you for today. Next time I see you, hopefully we will be planting all this ranunculus. Thank you so much for watching. All I need now is a footstool.